This week, as May's end beckons in June, we'll take a close look at how the British media reported on the Prime Minister's demise, why a research company says it's a buyer's market in the competitive sports marketing sector. Two young local creatives will be making their way to the prestigious Cannes Lions Festival of Creativity in the south of France. We'll take a look at the idea that won them a trip of a lifetime, and how this mind-bending ad became a viral sensation in India.
I will shortly leave the job that it has been the honour of my life to hold. The second female Prime Minister, but certainly not the last.
Vote! We demand a people's vote! We demand a people's vote!
Well, a very warm welcome, and we are going to start with this. After not one, not two, but three rejections of her Brexit divorce deal in Parliament, it didn't come as much of a surprise, I guess, when the British Prime Minister Theresa May finally admitted defeat and announced her resignation on the 24th of May. The coverage of May's Brexit ordeal in the British press has always been a little less than flattering, I think, as the UK awaits her official stepping down from the position on the 7th of June. We're in conversation with correspondent Natalie Powell to take a look at how the Prime Minister has been portrayed in the British broadsheets, in the tabloids, and I guess also on television. Let's go to London. Natalie, a very warm welcome to you. So at the end, with all the tears, where did the media's sympathy lie, do you think?
I think somewhere in the middle, actually. A lot of focus was given prior to her stepping down over the fact that people wanted her out of number 10, that she had failed on Brexit. The UK was meant to be leaving the European Union on the 29th of March. That didn't happen. There was another deadline, and now we've got a further deadline of the 31st of October. But following her resignation, it was a real front page splash, actually, of those close-up photos of Theresa May in tears on the steps of number 10 as she finished her resignation speech. Now, it was an interesting speech to watch, actually. She made it all the way through to the end before actually tearing up. And this is somebody that has been seen as a very strong, resilient woman throughout her time at number 10. And right at the end, she just couldn't contain it anymore. And that was the moment that the paparazzi went crazy and snapped that picture that was on the front pages of all of the British press and indeed tabloids. There was a lot of focus on those tears. Some of the headlines I can read out to you now. The Daily Mail said that it was a crying shame. The Times, it all ends in tears. Unsurprisingly, the Telegraph focused on the fact that Boris Johnson was now aiming for number 10, Boris Johnson being a big contributor, of course, of that newspaper. But perhaps the Guardian summed it up best by saying that Theresa May was broken by Brexit. And that's certainly the general feeling in the country. She, of course, being the Prime Minister tasked with Brexit, she didn't do it, and therefore she had to essentially fall on her sword and leave.
Natalie, as far as Theresa May is concerned, and I guess for that matter number 10 Downing Street, how forthcoming has her office, how forthcoming has she been in her media dealings over this long ordeal?
I think it's interesting to see how it's changed over her time in office. At the beginning, there was a big push for Theresa May to have more of a personality, and she was doing lots of different types of interviews, with magazines even, not just newspapers and press. And a lot of the magazine focus was on her fashion and, of course, the fact that she was a female Prime Minister. But over the years, certainly when Brexit has really hit hardest, that has changed. And you've seen the Prime Minister now really concentrate on what she's doing in Brexit. She certainly hasn't been shy of giving a press conference. She has tried to keep the country updated every step of the day. But I think her real downfall has been trying to tread that middle ground, that central ground over Brexit. And the reason that she's done that is simply because 52% of the country voted leave, 48% of the country voted remain. But in trying to tread that middle ground, she has lost support from from either one of those sides, and it's become a very polarised Britain whilst she's been in office. What you have to say for Theresa May, though, is that every faux pas she has made as Prime Minister, she has really tried to turn it around. We look at the fact that it was across the media here in the UK when she visited several African nations and she was seen dancing very robotically, very uncomfortably. And then fast forward to the Tory party conference just a few months later, where she came onto stage to the tune of Dancing Queen by ABBA, doing that robotic dancing that many people have nicknamed the Maybot. So she's really tried to turn every opportunity, every negative opportunity into a positive one. And really her downfall has simply been the fact that she's tried to deliver a Brexit that the whole country could get on board with, this very, very divided country that's in a lot of division at the moment, a very polarised country, and simply that hasn't happened because the Remainers and the Leavers are literally so far away from each other that she simply can't satisfy everybody.
There are certain politicians that should never attempt dancing, but we'll keep Nelson Mandela off that list. You know, I'm reminded of that old cliche, Natalie Powell, that today's front page news is tomorrow's fish and chip wrapping. The story's moving on now, though, isn't it? It's not about Theresa May anymore. Her time is done. Surely the papers, television, radio is now focusing on the successor, and most notably Boris Johnson, who appears to have lost a bit of weight.
Exactly right. Theresa May, we know, is out of the Conservative leadership on the 7th of June. And then, of course, we enter a period of that race for her job as leader of that party, but also her job as Prime Minister. And as you've correctly said, Boris Johnson, the front-runner, Boris Johnson being the former Foreign Secretary here in the UK and former London Mayor. Now, what's interesting about Boris is he is this huge personality. He's so different to Theresa May on that front. He's well liked among a lot of the public here in the UK because of his larger-than-life personality. However, what we can't forget is how much damage the publicity he did ahead of the European Union referendum was because he drove around the country on a bus that said that leaving the EU would mean £350 billion would go back to the UK's National Health Service. That claim was not true, and as a result, those 48% of the country that voted for Remain really do blame him for essentially spreading lies during those campaign efforts, and that may have swayed many people to vote to leave the European Union. So he's still got a lot of work ahead, even though he is popular with about half of the country. In terms of who else is involved, well, there's been an awful lot of candidates that have put their hands up, and a lot of people would question why they're doing this. It seems that Brexit appears to be a poison chalice if we look at how Theresa May has been treated on this. But there's a lot of speculation that if you do manage to get Brexit over the line, well, that is going to put you in the history books for forever. And there's a lot of candidates putting their hands up at the moment who know that they're not going to get into number 10, but perhaps by raising their hand at this stage in the competition, they may get a seat in cabinet.
The media perspective on Theresa May and Brexit. Natalie Powell in London, thank you very much. Next on the programme, why it's a buyer's market in the competitive sports marketing sector and how this soccer jersey is highlighting the scourge of post-match violence in Brazil.